Punters, back for part 2 of the Punters Academy. This one's from Sean. I keep bet records including track, distance, barrier, jockey, trainer, SP, price to bet was placed, position at the 800, the 400, etc. So obviously you're doing a good job, Sean, in terms of the detail that you're capturing. If you're not using a database to analyse the results, obviously that makes sense, putting that sort of data into a spreadsheet and sort of being able to maybe do a little bit of micro-analysis over those variables. But if you wanted to do a wider range of testing, you'd obviously need a more sophisticated platform to work from. At what sample size would you adjust betting strategies based on the patterns found within your results? I think the first point, Sean, is that it's all dependent on the actual sample size of bets that you're looking at. So if you're looking at a small number of bets, 100, 200, even 500, possibly even 1,000 bets, I wouldn't be sort of making knee-jerk adjustments to your whole strategy or in terms of what you're doing based on maybe patterns that are small sample driven. Because it's going to be problematic, or it can just be simply variance.
There's a lot of reasons for patterns, and it can be seasonal. It can be the different tracks you're betting at. Obviously, like everything's totally different. So you have to have a decent sample size at every track, every distance, every time of year before you can. So even though you might want to say after a year you've got these results, I want to jump into making big changes. A year's not a lot because you've only got small sample sizes that are all different.
Yeah, it's not the time, it's the number of bets that we're talking about. You know, if you're having 1,000 bets in a quarter, I'm not saying you should, but if you are, obviously you're going to build a sample of 4,000 bets at the end of the year.
Yes.
If you're having 1,000 bets over 3 years, you're going to take a long time to get to that same level. So it's more about the number of bets in terms of data modelling and sampling. If you've got 1,000 bets at, say, $3 and you have a 10% edge over the market, then realistically your results could be anywhere between break square and a 20% profit on turnover. Anywhere in that range is normal, but the way you dissect the analysis of the bets that you've had might be very different based on if you are breaking square or if you're making 20%. If you're making 20%, you're thinking, how good's this?
Yes.
If you're breaking square, you think, God, this is hard.
Yeah, it's a grind.
But the reality is you've still got a 10% edge over the market. You may not know it, but that's what the math looks like when you actually dissect it that way. So from my point of view, big sample, the safety in large numbers is a very important concept to grasp when you're making key decisions to change.
Simply based on data, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Change the approach.
Absolutely.
John, did you want to add anything to that?
It's a tough question for me because I'm such a believer in dissecting every race and every bet and everything. So I sort of try and factor it all into every race. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried about results over the end of the year. I don't really look for patterns because I'm reacting to each race as a different living being. So I handle it a lot differently to someone that's more data-driven.
Yeah. Okay. Another one from Sean. So same Sean. What's the best staking plan for lay betting? I currently collect 4%, I think you mean payout, but anyway, 4% against my rated price. E.g., the horse is $2, so I risk 2% of my bank. The horse is $4, so I risk 3% of my bank. In principle, what you've outlined is spot on in terms of reversing the probability. So if the horse is $4,
he's having
got a 25% chance of winning and a 75%
fours on, and he's taking it even. He had 2 at evens, 3 units of fours, threes on. Yeah. Okay.
Nothing wrong in principle with that. I think it's the math. You're just reversing the probabilities, assuming that the probabilities are right to begin with.
Yes.
That you're working with, or at least accurate enough to turn a profit. The other option, of course, is that you can go on to Betfair, use the Betfair starting price, and actually cap your liability. So you can actually go in there and say, "Well, I only want to lose $50 on this."
So interesting. So it's against his rated price. So the horse is not $2. That's what he's risking. You have to
be competent in those prices.
But surely, if you're rating something, no, so the other way around. So if he's got something, see, how do you know when to lay?
So, if he decides that he wants to lay this horse,
yes,
for whatever reason,
yes,
it's $4 in the market.
Yes. Oh, it's in the market. He's letting the market determine it, or he himself?
No. He's saying it's a $4 chance.
Yes.
The market's saying it's a $4 chance.
He lays 3%.
But for whatever reason, he thinks that there are risk factors associated with the horse. It might be $3 in the market.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So
he's risking.
Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what price it is, he's risking 3%. Okay.
The trigger to determine the bet size is his price.
So he's actually not collecting 4%.
Payout,
it's payout 4%.
Yeah, we understand what you're saying, Sean.
Okay.
So, spot on, but as I said, some people go on to Betfair SP and set their liability at a cap per race. So you can go in there and say, well, I'm willing to risk this much in dollars, because you don't know what the price is going to be yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an SP price.
Yeah.
It could be $2.20, it could be $2.80, it could be $1.90. But you're obviously using the market as a guide to make that decision. But your win or loss, well, if you lose, you're only going to lose your maximum liability.
Yes.
If you win, you're going to win based on the Betfair SP and
lay betting, something I don't do anywhere near as much as I should do, and probably because of this, I don't feel comfortable working in the odds-on landscape that often. So I just don't really understand the staking behind it to not put yourself too much at risk. So it's a good question that I probably can learn a lot more about myself, because it is an area that is underutilised. I think there's races, a lot of races where I encounter that I really don't like something, but I can't be confident in what's going to beat it. I think everything's against it, and it has to be very lucky to win. But I don't tend to lay those horses as much as I should. So
well, you just put the Buffy's hat on.
It is, and it's an area that's, I think, underplayed by a lot of people, and a lot of people definitely don't even know about Betfair or things like that. Really, compared that should be educated about it. So
and we can talk more about that as we go through. A do show.
Definitely, even if I wouldn't mind doing a full show sort of thing, or a session on lay betting, because I think it's worthwhile. I think it's definitely an underplayed part of the market that I know in your service that you were talking about the last few weeks is you were talking about laying horses quite regularly. And I don't at all, and I don't tell anyone to really lay horses. I might say they're a risk or something, but I never suggest lay betting. So it's something I definitely can learn more about myself.
Sure. Sean, good email.
Good question.
Good question, I should say, on Twitter. Okay, the next one is from Seminole Bingo. I think.
Yeah.
I think this one might be directed at you, John. You specify X units per selection, e.g., 1 unit on Mana on Saturday. Is that based on a notional bank of 100 units?
So I have a maximum bet of 6 units per race, or a maximum outlay on a variety of runs. This race I handled it pretty averagely, where I had 3 selections in the race, 2.5 on the other 2 and 1 on Mana. I think it was about 15-1. So it was still a positive result. But the idea, we sort of say to people, because the clients, I don't know them all personally, and there's such a range of people with different betting bank sizes, different agendas. Some of them are just Saturday punters who just want to go in. They've got no real interest in long-term staking to how I sort of suggest or anything like that. It covers a broad range. So I would say that I normally say to people a 300 unit bank minimum, so that's a 2% outlay maximum. 600 is probably suggested for someone who wants to be really cautious.
This is more like a hobby type thing.
It's to cover everybody. So to say someone who wants to be really conscientious and conservative, they might start with the 600 bank. Someone who wants to be a little bit more positive, they'll start with a 300. And for the people who do get my sort of thing, if I say 1 unit, it's basically a confidence scale between 1 and 6, where they might, at the start of the day, if they've got $100 to outlay and there's 20 units, they'll assign $5 per unit of my betting for that day. So it's my system probably can be improved. It's definitely not the most accurate and best out there to maximise every selection every day, but it covers a broad range of people and is still proven to be profitable over time, and that's kind of how I've tried to work it, to provide a confidence level and something that's consistent and profitable over time.
Good answer. From my point of view, it's just a 100 unit bank. Whereas I'm looking at it from a differently...
You're a 100 unit bank, but you would say you would drop my unit size, so you would never outlay 6 units per race.
No.
So
the horse would have to be, $1.10, $1.15.
Crazy. So
you
drop the bet sizes down, and it's 100 units. Yeah, so it's 100 units of something, anything, but you just got to work out what the maximum
think
is.
of it as 100%.
100%.
You can only lose a bank.
Yes.
Whatever that bank is. Now,
Yeah.
I accept that a lot of punters go to the races with, maybe the tab or wherever they go.
$50, $100, $500, $20,000 doesn't make any difference.
That's what they can afford,
Yeah.
and that's fine. That's their bank from their point of view.
Yes.
I'm talking about someone who's trying to earn a living out of this longer term, who's trying to attack it from a purely
Business
professional
point, yeah.
and a business type viewpoint and outlook, and you've only got 100% of your capital to lose.
Yes.
So you need to bet in accordance with that bank. Each unit is obviously 1% of your bank, and you stake. For me, most of my bets are staking to collect 4% based on my rated price, because I've got confidence in those prices, and I only know that because of the longevity in terms of me being able to prove that my markets are accurate enough for me to turn a more of a profit than what I would by simply accepting the market price.
Correct, which is what I do to a different degree. Exactly. So it's not based on to achieve or what the price of the market has it, or it's more my edge over the market than the opposite. So, and actually I might look into providing, say, my price, so that people can plug it into a system like yours if they would prefer, and they can run them alongside each other and see what's more profitable. It'd be interesting at least.
It's always a good way to
it makes no more work for me to supply my sort of rated price, and if people want to sort of use it as an underlay market, it can sort of add something to it. So thanks, Seminole. Bingo.
Good name. Kurt Munro, try to explain what kind of bet it takes for the corpse to roll a horse from 8s to 5s in the space of a few minutes. Not much. In fact, we could probably make a horse go from $8 to $5 with less than maybe $500 if we really wanted to.
Yeah. I think it depends on time of day, what it is.
Yeah.
So late at night, I think a lot of these people, like a lot of the companies, set up an algorithm which they all seem to have the same one.
They're all running off each other.
Exactly. It firms at Sportsbet and CrownBet. All of a sudden, everyone else has gone off. They haven't written a bet, so it hasn't taken $1 at those places. It's taken a bit at the other. There was horse I sent out today went from $17, $18 into $7 in 10 minutes. But again, it's an impossible question to answer. Depends upon who's backed it. I would say.
But for the most part, if it's just someone lining up.
Yeah, I'd say 8s into 5s. That might be $1,000.
Yeah.
Something. If it's the right person, it's $1,000.
Yeah, depending on the market, whether it's a metropolitan market, a country market. As John says, time of day is obviously going to be important. So
the main thing is it's not much. It's nowhere near what it should be. The market is just overreacting so heavily, it's crazy, and it's actually nearly open to manipulation now. The problem is that no one can get on really, but
That's right.
someone like, a few big punters in Sydney that I used to love to manipulate the markets. It's very easy to get a horse. Say you've got 3 horses around the $3.50 mark.
Yep.
You've got one of them marked 10s or 12s and the other 2 marked quite short. It's very easy to chime into one of them at 5 to 2 and get the other one out to 9 to 2 in 10 minutes. And then you just wait and send your big players into your first pick. You might back your second pick. It's getting to that position where, and then that shows. Like at the end of when the race runs, it's all mythical. The whole thing, it's just unbelievable. Like anyone who just bets off trying to market movers and things like this, good luck, because you've got no idea what's causing shifts. It can be a tiny bet from a big punter, or it's crazy.
The density isn't there anymore.
No.
Like it used to be.
No.
When you turned up on Saturday or Wednesday, and there was no early betting, and
there's no opinion to it.
Yeah.
There's no one holding. They're just accepting that whoever's on the other end of that bet knows more than me. Wind it in. There's no one there actually making a decision. It's just an automated program.
The computer's got a limit, sets it, and away they go.
Wind.
And they follow each other. So it's sort of self-fulfilling in terms of the prophecy. And the next question from Alex probably is a lead-on from that.
Yes.
And that is that thoughts on reading the market, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday moves, 10 a.m. race moves, 20 minutes till jump, last 5 minutes of betting, who is betting when. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading into Saturday.
Anybody.
Anyone. Could
Owner, trainer, me, Paul, anyone. Can be anyone. Doesn't
it? Can be anyone. I mean, I
definitely have a look and have a snipe if I think they've made a mistake, and obviously they'll adjust that market much more rapidly than if it was later in betting. So something that's $10 into $4.60 may be one bet on a Wednesday. The later it gets in betting, I think a lot of the places do sort of do move their limits up. Not for they're set for the punter who's already OFF, but
Yeah.
the rest of them sort of seem to take a bigger bet as it comes closer to race time, and it'll
Sure.
take more money to move it. I would say that I would take absolutely no notice, apart from, say, first starters and things like that may have huge queries beside their names, take a little bit more notice of early moves for them, and the rest I would take none.
It's a mythical price. It doesn't exist in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like watching porn with boxing gloves on sometimes, looking at those prices is how somebody explained it to me once, and I've used that a couple of times, and the old Bet365 early March.
I haven't heard that since Mum said that to me about 20 years ago.
But look, those early moves, they don't mean much. 10 a.m. race day, yes, it starts to get serious.
It
probably
does.
after 9, 10 o'clock.
Even those are still exaggerated.
They're still exaggerated, and look, I'll often line up around about 9 to 10, and if I think that I want to get maybe a percentage of my money on at a particular price, and then wait for the rest, because often they do rebound, they get back out again.
Oh, massively.
As we see all the time, and the last 20 minutes is obviously the most important time. That's when the majority of professionals start to play. The bigger bets, last 5 minutes, that's really important.
Absolutely.
Especially on Betfair, and if you're looking for angles, look for big differences in percentage between Betfair and fixed odds markets. If you like a horse at say $5 and it's $5.50 into $5, and you think, oh well, it's firm, and it's $5, suddenly $7, $8 on Betfair.
You got to worry.
You've got to start to worry that premium that is able to be got on Betfair is a concern for the chances of your bet.
And the way the market sort of reacts to Betfair now, it doesn't matter whether you care about Betfair or not, you have to watch it, because if it is $7 or $8 and $5 with every corporate, within 30 seconds you'll be getting $7 or $6.50 or something like that anyway. So regardless of whether
which means something else will move.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you have to keep an eye on Betfair just to know whether you're taking the right price, because if it's tight, it's probably time to bet. If you've got that couple of points of overs, best to wait. And this is if you have no regard for the Betfair giving you any sort of guide. It's just telling you what price to take about the thing that you want to back.
Okay, Alex, a great question, and Kurt, very important. Brad Davison, our journalist there in Sydney. How do you approach betting?
He got a bit of a tack for this. He got a
bit of a caning.
Mr. Jock jumped on him. It was pretty crazy. But anyway,
genuine question, Brad, and look, great point that you raised. How do you approach betting at Randwick, especially when it's wet? John, you sort of talk more about this.
Well, I gave him a short answer, and that was Mike Tyson throwing a dart at a board with his eyes closed. And a good example is me last week thinking, rail back to true, the last 4 rail back to trues, the fences went on fire. Did look at the wind and saw it was sort of supposed to be 10 to 20 k's an hour, but it jumped up to 30 to 40 on the day, and all of a sudden the fence was not off, but if you were in no cover,
you're looking for cover.
Yeah, no cover, you're out of business. So pattern of and it's nothing to do with the curators or anyone of that matter in this fashion. It became a different element that came into play. So it's not really Randwick's fault, but it is an exposed racetrack, so wind is a huge factor. So then you when it's wet and then wind came into play, Randwick's just a tough place to set up for, and it's only because it's been inconsistent, which is why he's unfairly attacked. I think it's not as if Brad's having a go at anyone.
No.
The track's just been really wet, they've had issues with it, it's well publicised, everyone's seen it. It's not an attack on anyone, it's just been a really hard place to set up for.
Because we saw that for a number of years, that inside section being compromised.
It was horrific.
Every time the rain was around, and the rail was true.
And it's not as if it was 1 or 2 off. You had to get 7 or 8 off in the straight. And if you were sort of drawn inside or anything, you're out of business. And then all of a sudden it became
not the place to be.
That's right. And then it became a conveyor belt for 3 or 4 months. And so you're mentally gone. And then you've got to, naturally as a punter, you've got to query. You've got to say, well, listen, they've been getting bad feedback for this. Are they going to, start rolling the? Do they start rolling the outside? They're going to start cutting it short. Are they going to start trying to compensate for? Yeah. So and you're not made aware of most of these things. So it's more the mental demons that you've got in the back of your head from how Randwick's played for 20 years. It suddenly changed. Is it going to change back? Have they made changes? And as it turned out, Saturday a bit of wind came in and stuffed everybody, or stuffed me. But it is a really tough track to bet at. I would say, how do I approach it? I try to be confident about one set of idea that I can back up as best I can with educated guessing.
Yep.
And then but I've got to be more flexible at Randwick than any other. So I have to come in, say the Lower Main race is a great example. Again, I think I marked it $4.80, thinking that if it was back last and widest, I thought it had to put up a really big performance to win against the bias that's been showing up at Randwick. All of a sudden, you need cover. It's down the outside. I'm marking it 7-4. And unfortunately, he didn't get cover and he got beat. But if he got cover, he goes very close. Whereas
thanks Corey Brown for that ride too on the winner. He did a good job.
He did, the stablemate too, keeping him out there.
And,
so yeah,
you were laughing and I was.
Yeah, so there was a lot of the horses. So say Care to Think on this day where I might have marked him. I think he marked him 4-1, and he went round even money, and I probably had him closer to say 2-1 by the time the race came because of the changing conditions. So it's huge shifts at places like Randwick that you have to be ready to make.
You've got to be flexible.
Yes, but in a big range, like it's not as if it's going to be 2 or 3 off instead of 1 or 2 off. It could be down the outside fence or the inside, or you need cover, or you can't. It's a 1 lane off. You've got to be ready for everything.
And that's a little bit of preparation, Brad, from my point of view. A little bit of preparation pre-meeting, as you're probably aware anyway. I use the track and comments filter within the Access database to show me historically what the track has played to in terms of rail position, and so if I keep records of bias, or should I say my interpretation of bias for a particular track, so I can say, well, there's been X meetings here over the last 3 years in this rail position. This is how it's played. Statistically, X percentage of the time.
Yes.
This is how it's played more recently. So same as you, John, you're going in there with some sort of preconceived idea of what you're expecting to see, and then you watch a couple of races and get a feel for
what's really happening. So an interesting thing from Saturday is I don't think the fence was off in any way, shape or form, and I just think like people marking down saying, it looked like a lot of people said to me the fence is garbage. All throughout the day they're like, and I was sort of having running battles with people saying the fence is no good. Like you saw the first winner came up the fence, that's not a great thing because maybe, first play at the track, it's okay, but like horses like Invincible Gem, it was back 1 on 1.5 off, he was keeping old mate out there. Horses that got into those positions where they still had cover from the wind, then got to the outside and they could run on. I don't think the fence was a drama, and people might then overplay that next time it comes back to a rail true and think it's going to be down the outside naturally. So you've just got to really try and investigate when you're doing your post-race work, what caused the bias. Yeah.
Good point, Brad. Thanks for that. This is from Nathan Greenaway. How do you both of your profit on turnover compare between Randwick and Rose Hill over the post 12 months? Mine is much higher at Rose Hill. And 2, I'm considering reducing staking the amount that I bet at Randwick moving forward. So, John, do you have any data, or have you looked at your performance?
I haven't had a chance to go back and look at this, but I don't think there is much between them. I'm as a person setting up a meeting and confidence-wise going into the meeting, I definitely prefer Rose Hill, and I probably have more bets there because of that. But I don't think it affects my profitability. It's more the turnovers. So the percentage is probably similar, but the turnover is higher at Rose Hill.
Is that because you're going into the meeting at Rose Hill more confident with the pattern that you expect?
Yeah, so I can bet more confidently early in the day, whereas Randwick I might go in there far more cautiously, maybe play small in the first couple of races on the pattern that I'm predicting, and then bet high, might bet into the meeting more confidently later, whereas Rose Hill I can normally basically just go into it and expect, and you get what you expect.
But is there a risk that that's an observational type bias that you've got between the two tracks? Randwick, Rose Hill, based on the as you say, the uncertainty of how it's been playing of late.
Yes.
Inside no good.
All I was saying is all I know is I have a lot more bets at Rose Hill than I do at Randwick, and I'm not saying that I'm better at either. I just know that I bet more at Rose Hill.
Yeah. Okay. Good. From my point of view, Rose Hill's slightly better in terms of what the data tells me, but that could be skewed because of the sample size. So I'm not sort of particularly fussed either way. I know what John's talking about. Rose Hill's, for me, it's a nice track to bet at. It's fairly predictable in terms of rail position and the climatic effects that might be actually present. So for me, it's not too much of an issue. That's about it this week, John. I think we covered a fair bit of ground. Anyone that likes to write in, it would be great if we could get all of the questions sort of into one area. So email Paul at thepuntersacademy.com.au, please, or email John, but it's much easier to extract.
Much easier if you get them all to Paul, that's right, because otherwise I'm just forwarding them through to him pretty much anyway, so they all kind of get there, but if we can get them to Paul, and earlier in the week the better too, so there's answers like that we can get into the questions a bit more intently, absolutely, especially questions like the last one of Nathan's. I wasn't completely prepared, but yeah, the questions have been really good so far, and there are a few issues that obviously we can't go into in depth in here that we'll probably get to in another way, in more depth between us, so they're good, everything keep them coming.
Indeed. So that's the Twitter handle, of course, for the Punters Academy is at TPAOZ. So if you want to send any messages through to John as well, he can be reached on his Twitter handle, racingwatch.com.au, ratingstowin.com.au, and we're actually enjoying doing this, John.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I'm like, as you said, I'm talking about lay betting things. I learned a lot last week. I'm learning more this week. They're good for. I miss talking, like sort of stuck in a bunker in the Gold Coast most of the time, and you miss talking to people day after day about racing, which is what I would do more when I was in Sydney, going to the races and learning constantly. So this sort of thing's great for me, and hopefully, everyone gets something out of it.
Indeed. Hope you enjoyed the show, and please give us your feedback and ideas, topics. Could be questions about racing or racing generally, issues, political issues, or whatever it might be. Happy to raise them, happy to deal with them, and we hope you enjoyed it. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.